Hey guys, welcome back to the Fool Me Once podcast. It's Marist.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back. It's Andrew.
We are here in our next episode of our communication series, and today's episode is all about confiding in people and how to choose the right people to confide in. So that looks like making sure that you are confiding in someone that's not going to cause more harm than good once you get done talking to them, right?
Yeah. I mean, confiding in the right people and having like your strong network around you that you can go to when times get tough or whatever can be so valuable, but also confiding in the wrong people can definitely have a negative impact on whatever it is you're dealing with and can make matters so much worse.
Yeah. So we thought, why not in this communication series, now that we've kind of equipped you with the basic communication skills, how to set boundaries, how to use your emotional intelligence and build on your emotional intelligence, and all the other things, like what we've gotten into a lot so
many
far.
things in the realm of communication.
Yes. So why not now? You've kind of learned how to hold yourself accountable and how to have healthy confrontation. So what does that look like for those moments when you're sitting back before you're engaging with anyone, you're actually dealing with these confrontations? Who are you confiding in? Because all of us confide in someone, typically. Most of us are not just holding on to our problems completely on our own. Maybe we have a best friend, or maybe it's our mom, or maybe our spouse, or our sister, or our brother. Someone that you call to say, hey, I'm going through a tough time. Here's what it is. And then you're seeking advice from them. So what we want to do is help you identify maybe that is a really safe, great place. And once you get through this podcast, you're going to feel very validated. And hopefully that you chose that person and that's who you're getting your advice from. Or maybe you're going to have sort of an aha moment where you're like, whoa, this person that I tell all of my business to all of the time may actually be keeping me stuck, or may be contributing to these problems escalating or being perpetual type problems in my life, because I just may not be choosing the right person. Not that there's anything wrong with that friend or anything like that, but if the goal is to improve your life, improve your relationships, and build healthier communication, it's very important to pay attention to whose advice you're getting, what you're listening to, what you're reading, what you're exposing yourself to online, on TV, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it all adds up to having those healthy relationships. And can't stress enough how helpful it can be to have the right people to go to in those times that you need, and then being able to tell the difference.
Yes.
So that's what we're hoping to get into and that you can get out of this.
Yes. And if this is your first time listening to this podcast or joining us on YouTube, then what we do on every episode is, number one, every month we'll have a theme. So the theme of this second half of July, because we launched mid-July, is all around communication. So every episode in this month is going to be geared around communication and improving your communication skills. In August, we're going to have an entirely new theme. August's theme is going to be creating your own reality. So what we do is we have a theme for the month, and that month will help you dive super deep into a particular topic so that hopefully you can hone in on your skills in that area of your life and get as much nuance, advice, and helpful tools for your tool belt in that area from all of the podcasts of that month. And then in each individual episode, we cover the lesson that we're going to discuss in that episode, the common obstacles that people face when they're faced with this sort of lesson or challenge in life, the opportunities that come with learning that lesson, and then tying that into the overall reward of how your life is going to monumentally improve and just be better all around because you've taken the time to kind of master this lesson or learn this lesson.
Yes. And then in the extended, if you're subscribed to one of our memberships, we will get into kind of our step-by-step approach on how you can tackle this specific challenge. So yeah, today we have a 5-step approach. if you happen to get into the extended on how to discern between who to confide in and who not to. So,
and steps to take when you're confiding in someone to make sure that it's healthy and productive.
Yes.
So let's get into it. So we're going to get straight into the obstacles. Obstacle number 1 is lack of discernment. So keep in mind when we're framing these obstacles, it's an obstacle in choosing wisely. So the obstacle is I'm someone who needs to confide in somebody, but I'm faced with this obstacle. Number 1, lack of discernment, because I don't have the ability to discern who is safe and who's not safe to speak to, and who's going to be helpful and who's going to be harmful. So that's a really big obstacle, I think, if you are just so familiar maybe with the people that you're confiding in, like your mom or your friends.
Yeah, I think by default you're going to want to lean on maybe who you're most comfortable talking to. Doesn't always make them the best suited to help you with that particular thing. So I could see, I know I felt it in the past of like not knowing who to go to and who not to, and then just not ending up confiding in people.
Yeah, so either because of your lack of discernment, you're not confiding in anyone and then allowing your emotions to bottle up like Andrew's talking about, or maybe you're subconsciously choosing somebody who's just going to validate your feelings and support whatever it is that you want to hear. And that's might feel like a safe, comfortable place and safe person to confide in. But ultimately, you have to ask yourself, is my goal just to have my feelings validated, or is my goal to come out of this conversation with better understanding and perspective so I can actually create change in this difficult area of my life? And so that's what we mean when we say, okay, just because someone's comfortable and safe, that may not necessarily mean that they are the most equipped to help you. So lack of discernment being number 1. Yeah. What is obstacle number 2?
So obstacle number 2 is fear of judgment. And I know that can be a big one, is you have this that you want to share and confide in this person, but then you can be overwhelmed or so worried about what they're going to think of you, or like how they're going to potentially judge you on this, look differently upon you based on what you're going to share with them when you're really trying to be vulnerable. And that's like the most scariest thing, I think, in being vulnerable with people is like worrying that they're going to judge you.
Especially if you are trying to maybe break outside of your comfort zone and confide in someone differently, which is why this ties back to like the lack of discernment. Like if you're not discerning of the person before you go and speak to them, then, or if you don't have the skills to discern before you're able to go and speak to someone, then another obstacle that could come up in choosing the right person to confide in is going to be, well, if I go and tell this person who I look up to, or you know, I think maybe they could help me, but are they going to judge me? And that's super scary to think that, you know, the picture that I've painted of myself to this person, or the way that they see me, is somehow all going to crumble. And then, you know, the mask that I'm wearing is going to be fallen, and they're going to see me for who I really am. And that feels scary, right? Especially if you have not learned how to hold yourself personally accountable to how you might have contributed to the problem. And if that's you, we did an episode on that, so you can go back and listen to that. It's a great episode. But if you're not comfortable with looking yourself in the mirror, then that's a very scary feeling to kind of lower your mask and let somebody else see you for maybe things that you feel shameful for, or maybe you didn't even do anything wrong. But let's say like you're struggling with things in your marriage and you want to talk to your friend, but then you're afraid like your friend's going to judge your spouse and you don't want that. So it's just judgment overall is going to keep you from wanting to confide in people, because then you could maybe have felt in the past, which takes us to number 3. So I'm going to go ahead and say it. Number 3 is past negative experiences being an obstacle. Yes. And all this ties together, right? So the past negative experiences that you've had when you've confided in someone and maybe gotten that judgment or criticism, or what they like went and told your business or something like that, like spread gossip around the office or to mutual friends, and then you associate now, like confiding in someone equals things getting worse. Either at this stage of the obstacles, either you've talked to someone who's safe and comfortable, who's only validating you so you're not getting proper advice, or you're terrified so you're not saying anything at all, or you've had the experience of sharing with other people because you genuinely wanted help and you were seeking help, but you just didn't know the right person to talk to, and it led to more harm and more negativity.
I was thinking about your spouse example, how like you confided in a friend or family member, maybe with something you're going through with your wife or husband, and then they maybe like told someone else, either in your family or another friend group, and now you're dealing with like multiple people that you didn't want knowing about this sensitive thing you're going through that you were really vulnerable with, and you can feel really burned by that.
Yeah,
from someone betraying your trust like that.
And then you're just like stacking on these, moments of, because let's be honest, how often are you calling your friends and family when you're in the height of your happiest moments with your spouse?
Yeah.
If this is the easiest thing I think we can equate to, right? It's like those interpersonal relationships. So you're going and confiding in these people when things are going wrong, but are you doing the same thing when things are going right? Or are you just posting online, posting on social media when things are going well, but then when you're speaking to them privately, it's only about things that are going wrong? So all around, you're sort of painting this false narrative in these other people's minds around like, what is the reality of this dynamic? And then you're continuing to go to them for advice and things are getting bad and things just aren't going to add up, right? So people are going to then be like feeling like, okay, the reality is obviously what's not on social media or what's not the thing that they're not speaking to me. But if you're not holding yourself accountable to what you're saying to people at all times, and you know very well, whatever the situation is, that things could be going well as maybe more often than they're going wrong, right? Mm-hmm. But when you're only speaking up when things are going wrong, then that can lead to a whole bunch of problems, right?
Yeah, these people could think that like that's how it always is. And it's like, no, you're just, every time you're going to them, you're communicating this negative side of a situation. So they're not a part of every facet of your life.
Yeah.
So having that discernment of knowing who to go to and who not to go to can really benefit you.
Yeah, because when you're dealing with someone, I mean, even if this is like in a job scenario, right? If every time you call your parents and you're complaining about your boss or your job, then the natural advice you're probably going to get every time, if that person is just there to validate you and is just worried about you being happy and all of that, then they're just going to be like, potentially talking you out of, you should find a new job, or your boss is always doing this to you and that's not okay, and da 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 da. But where are you holding yourself personally accountable to how you contributed to XYZ situation? Dealing with someone who is equipped is going to kind of be able to read between the lines. And we talked about this a lot in all the other episodes, so I can't stress that enough, that if any of this is kind of like hitting a I don't know, what am I trying to say?
Like a pain point?
Yeah, if any of this is kind of like striking a chord, thank you. Striking a chord with you, then maybe go back and dig into those. Like if I say, the emotional intelligence thing, or people kind of having your side and not other sides, or holding yourself accountable. So we went really deep into that. And when you have to confront someone, right? But anyway, back to the point. In this episode, when we're talking about these situations and that person is not equipped, someone who is equipped with that emotional intelligence will be able to see both sides of the story and understand that there's two sides to the story and then there's the truth. So they'll be able to ask some of those hard-hitting questions and help you reframe your perspective to understand maybe the role that you played versus also the other person.
Yeah, they'll be able to give you very sound feedback or advice on how to navigate your specific situation, and can lead to various amount of opportunities that we're about to get into next.
Yes.
That we can help you
So let's carry on. Before we get into the opportunities, I'm going to pull up my notes because we always have our little outline ready to go. So our notes for qualities of a good confidant. I think we've been telling you over and over again, and you guys are probably like, all right, get on with it.
Yeah, what do we look for here?
What is a good person then, right? So let's go over that first, and then we can kind of paint the picture of what that can look like, which will naturally, I think, lead into our opportunities. So the qualities of a good confidant. I've already said the first one with emotional intelligence. And empathy ties into that, right? Yeah. Like empathy, someone who has empathy and emotional intelligence is going to be able to see from a much broader perspective because they have their own personal experiences up to this point. So that's looking for someone. If I was speaking to somebody about a problem, the number one thing that I would want to look for is that they're not gassing me up. If the second I feel like I'm frustrated with something about Andrew and I'm sharing that with my confidant, right? I don't really get frustrated at you so much anymore. But in the past, like if I'm frustrated, I'm just going to use us as an example to keep it safe. If I'm frustrated with Andrew and I'm speaking to my confidant about this, and the first thing they do is tag team, like being angry towards Andrew and pointing out everything that's wrong with Andrew before I can even get like my full feelings out, that's going to be a giant red flag. If they're like, Marist, you're always dealing with this, he's never going to learn, like, oh my gosh, that's so annoying, or I can't believe that, or oh, I'm so sorry, I hate that, he's so annoying for doing that. Like, I'm just trying to think of things that people might say.
How dare they say those things about me?
I know. Sweet Andrew. No. So if someone's doing that, if that's the kind of energy, right? I'm just trying to give examples that can kind of, I think we've all been there before where we have that friend or that person who's like ready to go to battle with you. So to me now, in this stage of my life, when I'm trying to have productive, healthy relationships, I would see that as a giant red flag because that person is fully prepared to have my back and show me that they have my back, but they're not necessarily even at this point showing me that they even are curious about, well, why did Andrew do that? Or what did Andrew have to say about it? Or did you address this with Andrew? How did you handle it, Marist, before I just like gas you up? Like, so tell me exactly what happened. Like, tell me, like, calm down, everything's okay. Like, I'm here to listen, showing active listening skills. Like, I don't just want to hear like the highlights and why you're mad. Like, what's going on? Like, tell me verbatim, step for step, like what happened. And then that is a sign to me that that person is prepared to look for opportunities to help me understand where maybe I could have pivoted and handled something a little bit differently, or how my words or my actions maybe then triggered the next stage of this argument or this fight that led us to this, point where now I'm having to call you. So without giving the full picture and someone asking you for the full picture, that would be a red flag. So someone who's looking for those types of things and then showing empathy to both sides. So not afraid to tell you, hey, it's time for you to self-reflect on this, but also it's completely understandable. Everyone loses their temper sometimes. Like, I get it, but here's what's not acceptable, or not even telling them maybe, but like helping you determine, well, do you feel like that's acceptable? Like, are you okay with that? Could you give yourself any other insight into maybe why this person, did this? And then that kind of helps you calm down and maybe start seeing things from the other person's perspective. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, those are great qualities. Another one, we already touched on judgment, but like you want to find someone that's not going to judge you. I mean, that's pretty huge. And then also someone that has a track record of trustworthiness, not only just with you, but like in their life. Like, are they reliable? Have they shown up for other people in certain ways? And you have examples of this. So like, okay, this is going to be a safe, trustworthy person to go to.
Yeah, exactly. And what's so important about looking for these qualities is those can all lead to really great opportunities, which we're going to talk about in a second, for confiding in the right people, there's huge rewards from confiding in the right people and choosing wisely. But just to tie a bow on why it's so important not to confide in the wrong people is because of the damage that it can do. Not only to potentially contributing to more drama within whatever dynamic you're venting about or confiding in them about, but worse than that is your own personal mental health. If someone is not equipped to help you with whatever you're doing and talking about in this situation, then that can exacerbate your stress, heighten your anxiety, make the problem feel inflated and so much bigger because that person thinks that they are doing potentially good by making you feel validated in your feelings. But there is a very specific art to emotionally intelligent people who are able to allow you to feel validated, but also not quite literally gas you up and add fuel to the fire to where then that's the only focus that you have is your own righteousness and your own feelings of being right. Because that's not going to help you when you take that energy back into your dynamic that you're frustrated with your boss or your spouse or your friend. You're just going to go in there more heated and ready to fight. Meanwhile, the person sitting back waiting to potentially resolve things from you is now experiencing this totally different side where the only thing now that they can do is fight against your ego and whatever it is that's happened because you're only focused on yourself and your feelings and attacking the other person. So it can cause so much internal harm and damage to relationships.
Because that ego just got refueled by this person gassing them up. That's exactly what happens.
Yes. And then the other thing is, if you confide in the wrong people and they're not someone that's trustworthy, then you can get really, if you're not having that discernment and maybe you haven't yet experienced the people not, what am I trying to say? Maybe you haven't experienced people going and gossiping yet, but the second that you ever experience that, you're going to have huge regret and potentially that could damage you from ever wanting to share with people again if they judged you and maybe judged you and turned around and told everybody else or told a bunch of mutual friends. And now this kind of temporary problem that could have been resolved by speaking to the right person has now spread like wildfire and remained something that this little nugget of information that all these other people now know about you and could potentially try and hold against you in the future as well. So it's just so important that you are mindful of who you're giving your energy to and what that looks like in terms of confiding in people and sharing about your business.
So that brings us into the opportunities. And opportunity number one by confiding in the right person that you're going to experience is the emotional release of being able to kind of get all this off your chest that you've been holding in.
Yes.
And as we talked about in previous episodes about expressing your emotions, how big of an impact that can have on your mental health and lower stress by just getting this out of you.
Yeah, like the relief that comes from just saying out loud what's going on. And when you find the right people, it becomes therapeutic, quite literally. So like, even if it's not a therapist that you're talking to, but it's a friend or someone that you've kind of gone through that checklist to determine, yes, they're trustworthy. Yes, they're emotionally intelligent. Yes, they're prepared to like help me self-reflect and actually come up with some solutions to resolve this issue that I'm bringing to them, then that becomes extremely rewarding to feel, okay, I'm going through a really hard time and I'm feeling all of these feelings and I need to get them out of me. At least I know now when I go to this therapy session or call this friend who's deemed credible, like that person is going to then leave the conversation and you'll leave the conversation feeling like, whew, like a weight has now been lifted, instead of leaving the conversation more confused, more angry, more upset, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Emotional relief. And then we have opportunity number 2 is you're equipping yourself now with better problem solving skills. The more conversations that you have with people who have already been where you've been or giving you sound advice and helping you add those tools. If you don't feel like you left a conversation with any more skills or tools or new perspectives, then that's all you need to know about how the fact that that's not the right person to talk to. The right people to talk to are going to be people who leave you with tangible tools and new mindset and new perspective on how to approach this situation. It's not going to be the people who are keeping you and just repeating your same current state of mind. So I would say number 2 is in choosing the right people is you're then leaving with better problem solving skills.
Yeah, you're equipping yourself to be stronger, to be able to handle these situations in the future, and then also knowing you have these confidants that you can lean on in the future, which leads us to opportunity number 3, which is a common thread in improving all of these communication skills, are just deepening those bonds and those relationships with other people. Because you were at your most vulnerable moment and trusted someone to confide in them, and they received that and listened to you and heard you out, and that just like furthers the bond that you have with that person.
Yes, and then you're building your circle.
Yeah.
And you are, I don't know who said it, but I know I've heard it like my whole life, like you're the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, right? So having a small circle that you can trust by using these kind of skills to have your discernment and realize who is a person who's aligned with you, who's actually helping you down your path, is crucial in order for you to continue down your path of self-actualization and learning how to be a better, productive member of society and a better person in your relationships, where you're showing up healthy and strong and you are cultivating all the way through your path in your personal and professional life stronger relationships, which will catapult you into higher and better timelines of your own life of getting more and more what you want out of life instead of keeping you stuck. And that's really what we want to help you with, is to not remain stuck in these old mindsets and old patterns and old ways of thinking, to where you look back and you're the same person you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 1 month ago. I'm not the same person I was last week, right? Like I always thrive off of that. Always staying curious, learning, growing, learning from every single obstacle. And once you kind of accept that your entire life is going to be filled with these obstacles, but you reframe your mind to realize, oh, like every little obstacle is just an opportunity to learn and improve and get better, then, you know, you're going to have a much better life. And I'm like pausing because I'm realizing this is probably why I came up with like I knew I came up with the structure of the podcast to be obstacles, then opportunities, and then reward, but when it just came out of my mouth like that was so unintentional, like so it caught myself off guard. But that's exactly what this podcast is for.
You feel validated in how you set it up this time?
I feel like that's
a win.
Smart of me.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, because ultimately we're trying to grow and better ourselves every single day on this journey of self-actualization, and surrounding yourself or having that close network of confidants that you can go to confide in is just that extra tool in your tool belt on this journey that's going to help you. And when times get tough or whatever the situation or circumstance may be, you can lean on those trusted individuals to help you. Yes.
So we are going to jump over into the extended now. And on the extended, we have kind of a 5-step process, guideline, checklist type thing of what to look for. Not only like we went over what kind of person to look for, right? But this is more so, all right, you found the right person or people or therapist or whatever the situation is to confide in. Now, how do you go about confiding in them so that it's productive to you? So if you are already signed up to one of the memberships, then that's awesome. We'll see you in just a second. If you're not yet signed up, you can do so by jumping onto our website and clicking on the memberships link, or visiting this podcast on the YouTube channel at the Actualized Lifestyle YouTube channel. We have a link to the memberships in the description box, and we're going to jump over there. You'll get access to all of the extended videos and all of the lessons that we've done. But I'm super pumped. We only have I think 4 more episodes in this series, in the communication series. So we hope you guys have been enjoying it, and we will see you in our next video.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We'll see you in the extended, or we'll see you next time.